Hey folks, this is Rhykker with a Diablo 3 patch 2.6.10 Season 22 Witch Doctor build guide, and this guide should also be applicable to future seasons. This build guide is on the Mundunugu Witch Doctor, the starter set for Season 22 and the most powerful and versatile Witch Doctor build. In this video, we're going to go over the skills, the gear, and the playstyle that you need to rock this build, and we'll cover the difference between the Season 22 version and the non-season or future season version. You can also refer to the written version of this guide created by Diablo 3 expert SVR on maxroll.gg, link in the video description. So let's begin with an overview of the Mundunugu set itself. The 2-piece bonus makes Big Bad Voodoo follow you as opposed to stay in place and last twice as long. The 4-piece bonus makes us gain 60% damage reduction for 30 seconds when you enter the Spirit Realm, and that will be via our Spirit Walk skill, so you want to always be benefiting from this damage reduction. And then the 6-piece bonus makes Spirit Barrage deal 20,000% increased damage, plus an additional percent equal to 5 times your mana regeneration per second. What we care about most in this regard will be just the flat out 6-piece. Getting extra mana regen is not going to be worthwhile. There are generally far better uses of our gearing slots, of our skill slots, than getting more mana regen. Now we will want to benefit from the 6-piece bonus of this set, which will mean equipping 5 pieces, putting a Ring of Royal Grandeur in your cube, because then we'll also want to work in 2 pieces of the Captain Crimson set. The relevant bonuses here gives us more cooldown reduction, more resource cost reduction, and increases our damage based on our cooldown reduction, and increases our damage resistance in proportion to our resource cost reduction. Other important items for this build include the Barber. Huge damage multiplier here. Instead of dealing direct damage, your Spirit Barrage, which will be the star of this build, now accumulates on the target. When you stop casting, it explodes, dealing 500% of the accumulated damage to all enemies within 15 yards. We'll also need the Gazing Demise offhand. Spirit Barrage gains the Phantasm Rune, and each active Phantasm lasts twice as long, increases the damage of Spirit Barrage by 150%, and also increases the attack rate from Manitou Specters. Now there's a whole lot going on here with Spirit Barrage. The mechanics aren't well understood by most people. We're going to try to simplify things as much as possible and explain how best to manage your Spirit Barrage to maximize your damage. Now another item we're going to want is the Sacred Harvester. This makes Soul Harvest now stack up to 10 times. The Sacred Harvester is a staple in Witch Doctor builds, and we pair this with Lakumba's Ornament Bracers. This reduces all damage taken by 6% for each stack of Soul Harvest you have. So this will give us 60% total damage reduction when combined with the Sacred Harvester. Now normally, in the non-season version of this build, you can only have 2 weapons, one equipped and one in your cube. With Season 22, you can fit another weapon in your cube, and that other option will be Vu's Juicer. Spirit Barrage gains the effects of the Phlebotomize and the Spirit is Willing runes. So for Season 22, we'll want to have all 3 of these weapons. 1 equipped, 2 in the cube. Equip the best one that you have and cube the others. In non-season or future seasons where we don't have the 4th cube slot, you need the Barber, and then you should take Sacred Harvester for the more defensive option, or Vu's Juicer if you want to be really aggressive. Next, we'll want to work in a Traveler's Pledge and Compass Rose combo. This gives you more defense while you're moving and more damage while you're standing still. We need to take a Ring of Emptiness, huge damage multiplier. You deal 300% increased damage to enemies affected by either your Haunt or Locust Swarm. And then lastly in the cube, an Aquila Cuirass to give us more damage reduction when we are near max resource, which should generally be the case. Now we'll go over exactly what we need on every piece of gear in a little bit, but first let's talk about the skills and the playstyle. Spirit Barrage will be our damage dealer, and we're going to take the Manitou Rune. Note that Vu's Juicer is giving us Phlebotomize and the Spirit is Willing, and Gazing Demise is giving us Phantasm. The Spirit is Willing makes us gain 12 mana each time Spirit Barrage hits. This will help us ensure that we're always benefiting from our Aquila Cuirass. Phlebotomize gives us life every time Spirit Barrage hits. Manitou summons a Spectre that hovers above you, constantly shooting bolts of Spirit Barrage out at enemies, which combines very nicely with the Spirit is Willing, and then Phantasm makes Spirit Barrage instead summon a Spectre that swirls around in place, dealing damage to enemies within it. and you can have a maximum of 3 phantasms out at a time. But remember, with the Barber, our Spirit Barrage no longer deals direct damage. It accumulates damage, and then when you stop casting, it then explodes with a multiple of all the damage that has been accumulated. So that means, for example, if you did not have the Barber and you're just casting Spirit Barrage, channeling that on an enemy, after 5 seconds, let's say you've dealt 1 million damage. Well, with the Barber, instead of dealing 1 million damage over 5 seconds, you deal no damage, and then after 5 seconds, if you stop channeling, all the damage happens at once. Except it's not just 1 million, it's a multiplier, 500% of that 1 million, and it's spread out to enemies in an area as well. Now things become even more complicated when we're talking about the Phantasm Rune, because it's not a channel anymore. It's something that's just sitting in place. Now with Phantasm, again, you can have 3 phantasms out at once, and each will last 10 seconds. So if you cast a phantasm and then don't do anything, after 10 seconds, it's going to disappear. When it does that, that's when the Barber triggers. So for those 10 seconds, it deals no damage, it disappears on its own, and then boom, damage. You can, however, trigger this prematurely. Because you can only ever have 3 phantasms out, if you summon a 4th, that ends your first phantasm prematurely, which will make it detonate. So the general playstyle here is going to be casting 3 phantasms on top of each other, getting monsters onto that zone, and then detonating them in quick succession. But more on our rotation in a bit. We're also going to take Locust Swarm Pestilence. We're only taking Locust Swarm in order to benefit from our Ring of Emptiness. The Pestilence rune gives us a 2-for-1 on the cost of this rather mana-heavy skill. Locust Swarm itself lasts 8 seconds, so you just want to ensure that enemies are affected by it. Next, we're going to take Big Bad Voodoo Ghost Trance. Big Bad Voodoo is going to give us 15% increased attack speed for 20 seconds. Big Bad Voodoo is on a 2-minute cooldown, but thanks to Mundunugus, it'll last twice as long. And Ghost Trance gives us a nice defensive buff. We're healing, and we have damage reduction. The Rain Dance rune does give 250 mana per second, but that amount of damage doesn't warrant giving up the huge defensive buff of Ghost Trance. Big Bad Voodoo itself is going to give us more attack speed and movement speed, and that attack speed will buff our damage. Big Bad Voodoo is something we'll be able to have a significant amount of uptime on, but we do want to ensure we use it only when needed. Next, we'll take Spirit Walk Jaunt. Spirit Walk is essential here. We need it to activate our 4-piece of Mundunugus. Jaunt makes it last 1 extra second, and we're using this for mobility. Next, we're taking Soul Harvest Languish. This combines with our Sacred Harvester and Lakumba's Bracers to give us 30% increased intelligence, which means more damage and more all resist, and the Languish rune will also give us more armor. Then lastly, we're taking Piranha's Piranado in order to group enemies into our explosions. For our passives, we need to take Grave Injustice. This gives us 1% of our max life and mana and reduces the cooldown of all your skills by 1 second when an enemy dies within 20 yards. This will be key to having mass uptime on Big Bad Voodoo. Note as well that getting pickup radius on your gear will increase the range of this effect. Next, we'll take Confidence Ritual. You deal 25% increased damage to enemies within 20 yards. Next, we'll take Swampland Attunement. You and your pets gain 120 physical, poison, fire, and cold resist for every enemy within 20 yards. And again, this can be increased with our pickup radius. And lastly, we'll take Blood Ritual. 20% of your mana costs are paid with life. In addition, you regenerate 1% of your maximum life per second. This, in fact, helps us with Captain's Crimson, adding to resource cost reduction, and therefore giving us more toughness. So, again, the playstyle. You're gonna run out and you're going to aggro enemies towards you by casting Locust Swarm on them. As they're getting closer, you're gonna cast Piranado to group them together. Then you're gonna drop your 3 phantasms on them, pop, 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 and then it's your choice to either detonate immediately or how long you wanna wait. Evidently, if the monsters are gonna leave the area, you don't wanna wait that long. But it's important to be mindful of the 3 phantasm rotation. This is not a channeling build. You're not gonna just sit there and channel. It's all about managing your 3 detonations. Now let's go over exactly what we want on every piece of gear. Note that this build does not benefit from area damage. It does benefit from cooldown reduction with no diminishing returns, so you can stack as much as you want, and it also benefits from resource cost reduction. So on our shoulders, you want intelligence, vitality, cooldown, resource cost reduction. On our helm, intelligence, crit chance, spirit barrage damage, and then a diamond for cooldown. For our amulet, cold damage, crit chance, crit damage. For our gloves, crit chance, crit damage, cooldown, then attack speed. More attack speed will increase the damage of our phantasms. For our chest piece, intelligence, and then defensive stats like armor, elite damage reduction, and then your 3 sockets, you can either go with topazes for more damage, or if you want more toughness, at low paragon you can go with amethyst for vitality, or when you're able to substitute enough vitality via paragon, you can go with rubies or emeralds for armor. For our bracers, cold, intelligence, vitality, crit chance. For our belt, intelligence, vitality, life, and armor. For our pants, intelligence, vitality, armor. For our boots, intelligence, vitality, armor, spirit barrage damage. For our rings, crit, cooldown, can't go wrong. With the compass rose, you can fit in an extra stat, so you can go with attack speed or intelligence. For our offhand, spirit barrage damage, crit chance, cooldown, intelligence, then vitality. For your main hand, percent damage, attack speed, cooldown. And at lower paragon, you can have intelligence instead of cooldown. For your legendary gems, you're gonna need a Bane of the Trapped, huge damage multiplier. A Gogok of Swiftness will give us attack speed and cooldown reduction. And then for pushing the highest Greater Rifts, if it's taking you very long to finish a Greater Rift, a Bane of the Stricken will suit you nicely. Otherwise, if you're feeling squishy, you can go with an Esoteric Alteration or a Bane of the Powerful for more damage. For your Paragon points, max out move speed, then dump into Vitality until you have at least 800,000 life, then everything into intelligence. For offense, crit chance and crit damage, keeping a roughly 1:10 ratio between the two, then cooldown reduction, then attack speed. For defense, armor, life percent, all resist, life regen. And for utility, resource cost reduction, pickup radius, life per hit, and put nothing in area damage because it doesn't help us with this build and only makes things lag. And that's gonna wrap up this video. But do be sure to check out my video on speed leveling for the new season, my tier list video on the best builds of season 22, and stay tuned for more guides. Thanks for watching. Special thanks to my Twitch, Patreon, and YouTube supporters for making these videos possible. If you like what you see on this channel and want to support the creation of more content, you can consider pledging on YouTube or Patreon and unlocking behind-the-scenes content, monthly virtual hangouts, and more. If you enjoyed this video, please share it. Check out these other videos and subscribe to join Rhykker's Raiders for more Diablo content.